One of the things that, one of the amazing things about this moment is that we find ourselves with all of our different worlds colliding into one space where we have work, your home life, and that of your children. If you have children, obviously you do. That is all colliding into one space at the same time. And we're trying to navigate how to actually function well in that way. And ironically, the independent school world has actually come closer and actually collaborating more than ever right now in this time where people are quarantined and not at school, to help us actually navigate this and figure out how do we do remote schooling well. And we want to take some time today just to really try to give you some pointers on what might help you navigate the school and the academic life in your house at this moment. And we're not trying to tell you how to parent, but we are trying to manage this overlap of worlds of being a parent, being a helper in the education of your children. And we want to make sure that we're on the same page. So once again, chat function questions, preferably just to me, not to the whole group, would be great. But remember, we're going to be on mute and we're going to be asking questions through chat. The first thing that I really want to get to is just the tone and the environment. I think all of us have in this moment our hearts and our minds pulled in a lot of different directions. Some of us are directly or slightly indirectly being affected by this because of family or friends that might be in a situation or have the coronavirus. We have to recognize that we are doing this remote learning because we are forced to, because of unforeseen circumstances, and that tone and the environment is a really powerful one. And it is on us to make sure that we are trying to set up the right environment for our house. And the mindset and the tone that we bring as adults is huge. Mitch Albom has a great article in his daily, he has a weekly post. He has a great article that talks about the storytelling power of the media. And he was told by a doctor, you have power, you need to set the tone right now. Yes, this is serious. Yes, we need to know facts, but we also need to know that it's okay. We're going to survive this. We're going to move beyond this, and that the tone that leaders have, I would put parents and educators in that boat too, that tone has a huge effect on the country, especially in our community with our kids. So we need to try to remember that and balance the seriousness of this moment with that of remembering that we want to send the message that things are okay, we're going to be okay, and that life does continue and that fun can be had and all of those things. We want to make sure that we're going to keep that balance in that way. One way that we talk about this in education and the social emotional learning world is really just being aware of our emotions, recognizing in ourselves where we are emotionally and how that comes across to our kids, and recognizing that in our kids, we're used to doing that all the time, but now that these worlds are colliding, it looks different. A kid in school trying to navigate something might not be something that we're used to seeing. I'm going to stop and say that I use we a lot because I'm putting myself in the parent boat. I'm learning how to do this as a parent as I'm doing this right now. But we really need to be very much recognizing in our kids and in ourselves what are our emotions, and that really requires us to kind of recognize them, process them. And a lot of times that processing can be by talking or thinking through that, and then acting and having a plan on how do I respond if I know I'm emotionally upset or angry or frustrated. And what is the plan if my son or daughter is the same? Those things are very important to set the right tone. And then this one, again, not trying to tell anybody how to live their life or to parent, but we know this to be true. I'll tell you personally, it has been a struggle for me to be truly present with my kids and my family and to turn school off. Work at this moment for us has really kind of jumped up in hours and the amount that we need to put into this. And that's what's needed, and that's fine. But I have to struggle to make sure that I turn it off and I'm truly present with my kids. I'm not just in the room. I'm not checking a box. I'm hanging out with my kids while I'm doing work. No, that doesn't really work. That's not what they need. They need presence. They need to be engaged with. And the last thing is that I've been telling teachers this for the last 2 weeks. We need to be leading with understanding, kindness, and patience. Anything that happens, anything that comes your way, recognize the extraordinary circumstances we're in and lead with kindness, lead with patience. And that always has a better effect. And again, it goes back to recognizing our own emotions. And that's sometimes difficult, but we need to make sure that we do that to model for our kids, because we are really, as parents, we're home in front of our kids a lot more during the day than we usually are. And they see everything. They are observant. So we got to make sure that we're really leading with our best foot forward. Okay, I'm going to jump into some basics here. Some things that really do set a good model for effective and successful remote learning. Workspace is huge. The start of this program, my kids, I have 4 kids, 2 of them at PRS, 2 of them in elementary school, and they all ended up having a box. And all of their school stuff was in the box, and it sat on the table. And when 8 o'clock came, they grabbed their box and they raced off to the other parts of the house. And while that was kind of a fun solution, what we recognize is that they needed to be comfortable. So they gravitated to different places. They need to be in the same place. They need to be in a place where there's a workspace, a desk, and a chair, that their equipment is there. They have a laptop that works. They have internet that works. And these things are basic, but it is important that they have this consistent space to work in, because having to move around, I'll tell you that from my experience, is really difficult. It feels wrong to just sit down and get into a space that doesn't feel like I'm used to working there. So we need to kind of make sure that that's in place. Secondly, one of the biggest things I'm talking about in the last 2 weeks has been time management. We need to make sure that our kids really understand the schedule. I have kids in my house, even though we've been running on the same school schedule since August, will constantly come up to me in the middle of the day, like, when's my next class? I say, well, it's usually at 12:15. It's still at 12:15. That has been the way of my house lately. And we add to that we just changed the schedule. So now we're adding this whole complicating factor for middle school kids. This is huge. Print and post, that schedule. We need to make sure that the kids are using a planner and that you have some type of timing device. I have kids asking me all the time today, what time is it? When's my next class? And so we take it for granted that the kids know what time it is, but think about what they're used to. They go to one class, they all move at the same time to their next class. They don't have to think about it. They don't even have to look at the clock. They can just follow the movement of the people, and then they end up moving at the right time. We don't even have a bell schedule at school, an actual physical bell sound, because it just works. People get up and move, and the teachers know when to release them. This is now different at school. We need to make sure that they have a schedule that's up and posted. And then the second thing I would say is the planner. They must schedule their day. The second biggest thing I'm talking about right now is kids that are kind of struggling, are kids that do not actually have a planner and writing down what's happening. We have to write down, hey, you have this class at this period, you have some free time here. What are you going to do with that time? Is that time for basketball in the backyard? Is that time for reading? Is that time for you to do homework? Is that time to practice your violin? This scheduling thing is the biggest conversation I'm having right now, is just kind of getting kids situated in a new schedule, in a new environment. The other thing that is coming up with teachers, I'm telling teachers at this point, you have to lead with kindness and patience. And the key to success as a teacher in a school right now are three things: clarity, availability, and communication. Clarity, everything needs to be clear. You can't sit in front of the kids and explain something at this moment, so you have to make sure it's really clear. Availability, you have to be on email, you have to be willing to meet by Zoom because kids need it. And then the communication part is huge. So I'm asking parents, I'm asking students, and I'm asking teachers, use email, use PowerSchool Learning, get on Zoom meetings, but communication is the way that we're going to be able to support our kids. And if we don't have communication by all of those different groups, that's going to be a struggle. For students, I don't know how many of our kids check their email. I think it's more than it used to be, but I know that not all of them do. And I know that because I'll get emails from them asking questions that I just explained the answers to in an email 3 hours before. We need to make sure they're checking email and checking in with teachers. If they're confused about something, email their teachers or their peers. We got to make sure that they're constantly connecting with teachers and peers to make sure that they understand the clarity of what's going on there. Parents, same goes, same thing. I've been getting some great emails and phone calls from parents asking questions, and I've been saying this for the last few years. Don't hesitate, reach out to me, because more information for me allows us to do our job and support our kids. I would say that is tenfold now. We need your communication. We need you to help with communicating with the teachers if need be, or checking in with me if you need to. And the other part is that you need to check in with your kids. If you're working and you are still at work, good for you. I'm happy for you. But we do need to recognize that we need to be communicating as parents with our kids, checking in on how they're doing, maybe walking through their assignments and their grade book, their schedule, and reaching out to the school as needed. So now we get to digging deeper on some of this. One of the really big things is that I'm recognizing as a parent is that there's a lot of balance and different components that we have to figure out how much of what is needed in this moment. And the one thing that I would say is the biggest difference right now is that you as parents, we as parents are now witnessing school way more than we possibly ever have. And that's great in a lot of ways. But what we also have to recognize is that they are walking from 8 to 3, independent of their parents, through their school day. They are being challenged, they're making decisions, they're having to take risks. They have to learn from those risks and mistakes, and they do all of that without us there. And that is all part of growth and learning, and we must allow them to have that independent experience so that they can have that communication with their teachers and their peers and the curriculum. Struggle is good. We need to make sure that they continue to work and strive and get challenged, and we support as needed. But allowing them the independence to work on that is important. And we know that the support is needed because if we think about the logistics of what a normal school day was, they had, dozens of adults putting eyes on them at all times. Coaches, teachers, advisors, me, we witnessed them, we watched them walk by. We watch them as they come through and they are beaming, coming out of classes, talking about topics and just super engaged and excited about things. It's easy to spot a kid who's healthy and really thriving by just the look and the way they carry themselves. And on the other end, we also know that when kids are struggling, that's hard to hide. They wear that right in front of them. They got their head down, they won't make eye contact, they're slouched, they're slow to answer, or they're slow to get to work. That is the support that's needed. So in a school day, all of these adults would make note of that, let someone know, check in with the kid. They would just go over and say, hey, you okay? You look a little down. That's all normal school day stuff. And now we don't really have that ability to do it as much. The Zoom meetings are going to help, but we don't have that ability as a school to connect with those kids in the same way. That's just our reality. So that does fall on parents now as the people that will see directly the habits and the behaviors of our kids more than the school will from 8 to 3. And we need that help. We need your support. We have to work as a team to come together and actually support and help our kids have that healthy learning experience. If they're thriving, great. Just make note of that. Things are going well, great. If something else happens, they're struggling, monitor it, see what happens, talk to them, and reach out to us if you need to. But make sure you do. That's an important thing. And I'm hearing from parents about things as simple as, he can't quite get the schedule down, or she doesn't seem to be able to get into the Zoom meetings, or this teacher is actually posting the homework in a way that is confusing for my child. That's all information for me to help and process and to try to find solutions for. Those are good things to reach out for. That's support. Another way we need to have balance in our homes at this moment is this idea of a structured environment and one that is allowing for flexibility for problem solving and the unexpected. So we know that students need that structure, the academic schedule of the day, and the routines of going to their planner or to Power School or emailing with teachers. All of those things are really important and they need to be locked in place. And I would even argue structure also means locking into place family time and fun time, or what I call me time. That's time to do something that the kid wants to do or the family wants to do. But all of that is structure, and that needs to be in place, and it looks different than it used to. And we have to balance that. We're having some trouble. We have to balance that with, let me see if I can get that back up and going. Maybe not. It looks like we'll go like this for a minute. Let's see if this will work. But we have to balance that with this the idea of flexibility. The idea of something's going to go wrong in their day. We know that's going to happen. We know that there are going to be problems. We know there's going to be confusion. That's definitely assured to happen at some point. So we want to make sure that we are there, again, mindset and tone, leading with kindness and patience, having the positive attitude, being present. All of those things come into how do we support our kids in those moments when there's struggle, the curveball comes in and they're not prepared for it. A teacher asks them to do something that they're not prepared for. Those things are extremely important for us, and we need to make sure that we're there for them. But sometimes that's really challenging. Another part of this is balancing the work and play. We've been kind of alluding to this throughout, but we need to make very clear, I struggle with this, my kids struggle with this. I've been telling my PRS students in my house, how long have you been working on that homework? Okay, you gotta let it go. You have been working on it for this long, that's longer than you should have. Email your teacher and drop it, move on. And that's important because otherwise we're gonna have kids that are in front of the screen, pushing themselves, challenging themselves to do better or to do more, even when it's going beyond the 60 minutes of work they should be doing in a day for a class. That is not what we want. That is not healthy. That is not what is going to be a good balance for them. So we need to understand what the stressors are. What are things that are causing us stress? I'm going to try this one more time. What are the things that are causing us stress? And what are the things that we do when we know that stress is there? That's the emotional awareness, right? What stresses us and how do I relieve stress? How do I work to handle the moment where I'm feeling overwhelmed? Some things that really help with this are just following that schedule and the time limits. Do not allow kids to go crazy and spend 2 hours on one subject. That's not going to help anything. Email the teacher, communicate and talk. I'll be honest with you as a teacher right now, trying to navigate what asynchronous and synchronous work that equals 60 minutes is really challenging. And teachers right now are figuring that out. Because if I plan on having a 20-minute Zoom and it ends up going 40 minutes, and I'm giving my homework assignment that I was going to give, that might change the equation of the number of minutes that that kid is now dedicating to my class. Teachers are working on it, and you and the students need to work on it too. Do not allow your kids to be consumed by schoolwork and screen time. And that's the ability to turn off and turn on school. And I would say that this goes for adults as well. We need to make sure that we're able to do the same. Some of our schedules allow that to happen more easily, but it's important that we do that. And lastly, I would say, I'm telling kids all the time, hey, be kind to yourself. Make sure you're kind to others, but in this moment, don't beat yourself up. Don't be too hard on yourself. We're totally in new waters here, new terrain. Allow for that reality to be what it is. It's new. It is challenging, and some of us are struggling with that, and we're figuring it out. I have been remarkably pleased with how well our kids have moved into this new environment. But there are kids that need support, and that's okay. That's what we're expecting. And the last part of this is the me time. We have to make sure that we schedule the sleep. One of my personal biggest challenges, my colleagues know that they might see me up at 4 in the morning firing emails. I have a sleep problem. In the last couple of weeks, it's been actually worse because of where my mind goes, not just to work, but to family and friends that I have that I'm worrying about. Our kids pick up on the tone and the emotional toll that this is taking, and we got to make sure sleep is happening and it's the right amount. We need to make sure that we're getting outside, because that natural cycle of recess time, breaks from school, lunchtime at school, sports during school, that all has to be booked now, along with whatever's going to take the place of basketball practice that was happening outside of school, or violin lessons. My daughters are both doing Zoom or FaceTime music lessons right now, which I'm so happy that the teachers are allowing that to happen, because it keeps our structure going and the kids love doing that. But the physical, the outside activity part is really, really important. And that we need to make sure that happens. And then lastly, what I would say in this moment more than ever, we got to gravitate to the positive and gravitate towards what is beautiful in this world right now. There are a lot of things that can cloud and push to a side, things that we should take notice of. We need to pick our heads up and notice the good that's happening out there, and have that family conversation. I often say to my family, we have to actively pursue looking for beauty and joy and happiness in the world. That's our job. It's not just notice it when it comes around. You have to pursue it. I would say that that is more true than ever right now. Finding things to be grateful for. I often ask my kids, what are you happy about today? What are you proud of? What are you grateful for? Their gratitude journals, the gratitude conversations, those are huge right now. There are some news sources that are also focusing on the Greater Good website, focuses on all these positive things that people are doing, like making face masks for medical users that don't have them, people helping other people right now. It's important that we notice things in the world, from simple as a rainbow that was in front of your house the other day, to acts of kindness, to artwork that your kids are doing, music that they're playing, the way they actually interact with each other. Those are all things to highlight and focus on. This is an extremely hard time, but I feel very good that we're doing well with it, and that we're going to get into as good of a rhythm as we can, and that it is going to take a community. It is going to take all of us to work to support our kids and get the best out of this remote learning time as possible. So with that, I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to look at what kind of questions we might have in our chat. And then I would love to just kind of get in and answer a few if I can. And if not, you can always fire me a question by email or give me a call on my phone. All of that is welcome as well. So I have one question here. Do you have any ideas to help a student to respect their homework time limits? Between screen, online time, homework not balanced by seeing friends in passing periods. She is feeling exhausted and unable to do her music lessons. I think more than ever, and I don't have all the answers. I know that I'm learning right now as much as I am trying to lead. But right now, honestly, time limits are huge. I'm putting a timer in front of one of my kids. I'm saying, okay, you've got this homework assignment. I'm just going to put it down for 30 or 40 minutes and let's check in then. And if they're close, I'll let them go over that. But if they're not close, I'm just going to pause and say, you know what, let's email the teacher, tell them what's going on, and then move on. I think it's that basic right now, is that we have to actually be timekeepers sometimes for some of our kids. Some of our kids are great at doing that for themselves, but I know one in my house that is not. And she can honestly spend 2 hours on an assignment if I let it happen, and she has this year. And a timer, honestly, set your timer, 30 minutes, check in then. How are you doing? What do you need to do next? Well, I need to finish it because it's only 5 more minutes, or I need to email or reach out to the teacher, or I need to ask for help, right? Those are important things for us. Good question. The exhaustion, the part about feeling exhausted, that's what I'm getting a lot. I think we need to make sure that the kids are balanced. The exhaustion to me is a sign of emotional strain and an unbalanced schedule. We need to get that balanced, or we are going to be all exhausted, right? All of us. Okay, so here's a good one. How do we encourage students who are reluctant to communicate with teachers? This, if we had this magic bullet, if we had this key to this, I think educators would be so thankful. This is a hard one, right? Even when they're at school, we have kids that'll fly under the radar, walk out of the class not having any clue what's asked of them. And that is kind of developmentally where some of our kids are. I think what you have to first do is recognize the signs that there needs to be a communication, right? Okay, so that once you recognize that, I think you might have to sit down and just watch them type the email. And this is kind of the difference right now, where you might not have had to do that. You might have been sending an email to an advisor or a teacher. Right now, that might be what needs to happen. You can always reach out to the teacher. You can always reach out to the advisor. You can always reach out to me. But honestly, getting the kid in the habit of saying, I'm stuck, what do I do? Email the teacher, watch them do it, watch them send it. Short and sweet. It doesn't have to be a paragraph, right? Hello, Mr. Michel, I'm struggling with the homework. Do you think you could explain question 2 to me? That's it. Thank you. Bye. Does not have to be a beautifully written piece. It just needs to be simple and to the point. And I would just say we need more hand holding in that moment than anything. Good question. So there's conferences, a conference question. Student-led conference is something that's been really important and on our mind right now. I've been thinking about it a lot. I've been reaching out to other schools, and I've been finding that a lot of schools aren't there yet. We might be ahead of the game on what we're thinking about in terms of this. We don't have a decision yet, but I'll tell you what my thoughts are. I'm concerned that the normal student-led conference is going to be missing the point of this moment and reflecting on academics and things that were going on in the school day that aren't right now, or are not highlighting, the whole of this experience. I don't know that that is a good use of the kids' time and the advisors' time. Advisors do a ton of work with these conferences. I do think there is a moment here for reflection. I'm kind of thinking more of a holistic approach and really trying to help process this moment. We don't want to dig up details and facts. We want to help process this moment. What does it mean to be a student at our school, in our community at this moment? What does it mean to look at yourself as a student in this moment? And I think there is some reflection to be done there. I don't know what it is, and I think that we may be pushing that date back a little bit. But again, no firm decisions, just being honest about what's on my mind in that topic. Here's a question. Is it important for our families to have meals together? Yes, yes, and yes. Family moments where everyone's together, super important. A lot of that tone setting, a lot of that support, and a lot of that laughter and fun happen in those moments. Please book time together. It's actually an opportunity right now that a lot of us don't have all those things pulling us away from our families. We're here. So use that time, have those meals together, have the conversation, rose, thorn, bud. What mine always was, what's funny, what was fun, funny, and not so fun today. Just another way of getting kids talking, right? You know, what did they like? What made them laugh? And what wasn't so fun? Those are just good ways to kind of get information and connect as a group in this moment. So there's, in case of school closing for the rest of the year, is there any supplemental activities or classes that will bridge us from now until the fall? I think what I would say, again, we've been working extremely hard at trying to stay ahead of some of these really big decisions. And Bob has been great about being really thoughtful and demanding that there be a set amount of time of thinking and discussing before decisions are made. We're just not there yet on this one. Whether we're back in April, whether we're back this year, that's probably the more forefront. If we are, what happens if we are not? There's work there to be done, and there's a lot of work happening right now in that arena of what does that look like? Conferences, finals for high school kids, right? These are all really good questions that we're working on, but we don't have a clear understanding of what this is going to look like, and we don't have answers to some of them. Okay, so the new schedule makes it hard to have lunch for parents who are working remotely, since that does not sync with the normal business hours. Yeah, the new schedule, I love this direction we went in. I'm really a proponent of this schedule. I think reducing the amount of time we're locked to that screen, and as a family locked to that schedule, it does cause some other possible problems and concerns. And I get it. I think we just have to do our best, do your best to try to figure out how to schedule those things and do the best you can. Love to talk offline if you want more about that one. Okay, so there's a good comment here. Might be nice to reinforce the me time as including being out of the house and in the backyard. I agree with that. So if I didn't make that clear, I love that idea. Get out. I personally have found that I need to get out of the house and walk with my wife. I'm not walking very far because of my knee. And in fact, I've been pushing it too far, but just 20 minutes outside walking does wonders for me. It's a huge help. Um, let's see here. Okay, there is an inordinate amount of screen time that is difficult to manage without making them go outside, or with making them go outside. It ends up being a release, or without making them go outside, it ends up being a release for them, but making them do something that they aren't interested in. Not sure how to lure them outside or make some of this off-screen time more appealing is the gist of it. Yeah, these are tough ones, right? If a kid is locked to the screen and doesn't want to get off, doesn't want to let you in, those are really good conversations to have. I think you got to sit down and have a serious conversation about the schedule and just explain to them. Explaining the why is always key. The kids need to, and they actually deserve to know and not just be told why something's happening. So if you explain the schedule change to them and the reason behind it of we're finding that kids are having way more screen time than we would like, and it's necessary in some ways, but we need to balance it. And then locking in that schedule, I think they'll understand that. And maybe they'll want some voice in what it is they do. And maybe some of it's outdoor time, some of it's indoor time. But I explain the why. I think that has always gone really well for me. And that, I think they really appreciate it. Okay, so here's a good one. Is my child doing enough work? Is he sliding under the radar? I think he talks a lot about in class, but he doesn't dig deep into really good work. I don't think he's reaching out to kids directly. This is very much a developmental phase for a lot of kids. And whether they're checking boxes or they're learning to learn and not for a grade, this is, this is it. This is like the meat of a lot of what we do. We want kids to work on process skills, understanding challenge is good, understanding that you have to go back to something more than once often, and that's okay and necessary. This just gets harder in this time. We don't have the teachers seeing them face to face. We don't have them doing that. And there is more responsibility on kids to set up meetings and to set up what they need. This is at the heart of why I'm saying that teamwork, communication, parents, teachers, and student, we need to get into a more healthy rhythm in this remote learning environment. The only thing I would say is that you just kind of work through it with these kids and check in on some of those assignments and check in on some comments that teachers are making on work in the grade book. And that gives you an avenue in and say, oh, okay, so you worked on this, but the teacher was finding that there are some things missing. Let's make sure that we do this next time. How can we make sure of that? Focus on the process and the next time and solutions rather than, oh my goodness, I can't believe you did that. We want to lead with solutions and positive and not with coming down on them for a grade or an assignment. Kurt wants to know who does your drawings. So these are my drawings. I've been having some fun with this. So I've been finding ways to do work in ways that are fun for me and giving me some of my emotional tank, filling up my emotional tank, as Mr. Richter would say. So I'm having fun getting back to some artwork. Let's see. Okay, so one thing that's mentioned here is, how are we checking in on kids? Please know that we are actually still doing team meetings. I'm Zooming with our 7th and 8th grade teams every week. And we had shorter meetings. Now they're getting back to normal length and still all the same agenda. I'm setting up the same agenda, which is, hey, here are things to be thinking about. Here are some things I need your opinions on. And then half of that block is what's going on with kids and where are kids doing things well, where are kids needing support. And that is really, really important to continue that support now more than ever. We don't worry about that. Student support team is working double time right now to try and make sure that those kids get what they need. It's hard, but we're there doing it. Okay, so here's a good question. How much had you had to change the learning curriculum based on what's happening? Will kids be on track to finish the work they've had for the school if it's not open? Or if would we be doing the same amount of work? I will be honest with you, I don't know that we have the answer to that question yet. I would say that there is going to be a loss in doing school this way. How much of that is a curricular loss? There's probably a little bit. But I think the bigger concern, you can tell by the tone I'm having, the bigger concern I have is about the social, emotional, human connect, the experience of interacting and making decisions. That's a loss. And we need to make sure we do what we can to make sure that that's there. And we want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to build up the experiences that will most give them what they need. I would say for me in my class, I'm slowed down the pace. I've had to rewrite some of my lesson plans. And I would imagine that we may do that, but we also have time at the end of the year if we're still in this mode where we were going to be traveling, where we're not. So in some ways, we might be gaining 2 weeks of class time because those are school days that we need to account for. So in some ways, I'm not too worried about the curriculum, actually. I think we'll get what we need. And I'm certainly not worried about anybody being ready for 8th or 9th grade. I'm assured that we will be doing work that will help them and that our kids will be ready. And starting next year, we know what just happened in the last couple of months, and we'll be accounting for that as we move forward. I don't think there's going to be a loss in schedule of moving to the grade, or in a huge loss in what was done and missing out before the next year. I got a ping from one of our student support people just to remind you, Juan Trevino, Marcy Ryan, and Erica Pike are available. Please jump in, reach out to them. Even if you're not already connected to them, I would highly suggest, and I have used them as a personal source of information for one of my own kids. It's important that you have questions. Ask the people that will give you the answers. Come to me, go to them, go to teachers. That's really important. I think I'm running out of time here, but I'm going to try and get at least one more in, one or two more. Okay, so I have a parent recommending adding more art into the day. There are some great resources out there, great ways to actually get kids thinking creatively. I would highly suggest that. I think the arts teachers are trying to push their curriculum forward, but if you have time, exercise, outdoor time, me time, and creative time, absolutely. That is going to be part of the balance. I think that will be really wonderful. Okay, so another question about curricular loss and math. You know, I haven't heard math teachers or any teachers talk about curricular loss. I'll be really honest with you. We are working to continue to push our curriculum forward and engage kids in learning. I haven't heard teachers talk about significant loss, math teachers talking about significant loss. If we find that at the end of the year, we need to recommend or offer supplemental programs, anything like that before next fall, you can bet that we will. If we need to do that as a whole school or individually to certain kids, we'll figure out how to do that. But the math teachers and our teachers, I have to tell you, our teachers have been fantastic about moving forward and actually learning how to teach again. This is a totally different way of teaching, and our teachers are inspiring me. They are really, I'm picking up tips from them all the time. So I know that this is useful time. I know that the personal connect through Zoom is helpful. I know the curriculum is moving forward. Where we'll stand at the end of this, I don't know for sure. I don't have that answer. But the school will adjust. The school will recognize it honestly, and we'll figure it out. I'm not worried about that, though. I do have to, I think, sign off here again. If you have any other questions, please let me know, and do me a favor, be well, be happy, be safe, and thank you for what you do. You are picking up a lot of the workload here, and we know that, and we appreciate you for it, and we couldn't do it without you. So take care of yourselves, have a good Thursday, Friday, and a good weekend. Thank you all.